Appreciate you getting on. So Rob, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about your plight. You're just a one-person, even though you're an amazing person, you're a one-person company, and that's a whole different model for a lot of folks.
Yeah, thanks, Dwayne, and really thanks, Jeremy, for sharing your story while your company's, maybe 20 times bigger than mine, because I'm a one person. We have a lot of the same concerns. We fall under the same regulations. And so I'll kind of start before I get into, my assessment with Dwayne, kind of where I was. And so when I met Dwayne, I was doing some consulting work for him, helping him build email and alert infrastructure for his own internal cybersecurity and building out some of this platform. And right about that same time, I was coming on a new contract with a prime. And so I had done, the CyberNIST certification and been through the checklist. But the big weakness is I did it all myself. And so while I do run IT consulting work and systems engineering and like to think I can figure things out, I'm not trained in cybersecurity, and many of the things that I was coming across, I came across for the first time. And so I went through it. I did my self-assessment. I reported compliance back to my prime. I was, felt like I was diligent and honest and all of that. And I actually felt like I was in a pretty good place. But in that process, I recognized that the duty model had changed. And so, we had, penetration testing, external assessments, CMMC level 3 for CUI. These were all, kind of in addition to what was their previous policy of self-assessment compliance. And, I knew that there were some weaknesses. And so that's where I was when I first met, when I first approached Dwayne and said, well, in addition to this consulting work, I'd like to secure my own infrastructure, which, I run out of my home office. And so that was my start point, similar to Jeremy, where, we'd done some stuff, but we were pretty sure it wasn't, ready for the new paradigm, the new model, and quite honestly, the evolving threat. So much like Jeremy, I sat down with Dwayne and we did the rapid tech assessment, where, it was under 30 minutes. We got through the questionnaire and, got a decent technology score. I think, compared to some other small businesses, I was in good shape, and that was because of the previous work that I had done. And so, I had reason to believe we were going down the right path, but, huge weakness in terms of policy. So I had, a fairly short SOP. It was, probably fine for a one-person business, but there are a lot of holes in the SOP that, were in some cases were things I just hadn't, started to deal with yet. And then the other huge problem is this continuous monitoring and updating. So some of the things that I had done in a fairly recent update to my cybersecurity technology were already outdated, and I wasn't, even though I had log monitoring, I didn't have the time to go review all those logs and, check every day to see if anything funny was going on. And so I didn't have this sort of continuous monitoring, and also needed a firewall, device management, and these sort of vulnerability assessments. And that's when the folks at CyberLantern, Dwayne's crew, was able to get me on board with CrowdStrike, with device management, with Nessus, and also monitoring my Office 365, and in the process of trying to get a firewall and push that data in as well. And so on the technology side, my score increased rapidly just by essentially subscribing to the technology services offered by CyberLantern, and now they're monitoring. And then the next challenge I had was policy, and much like Jeremy, you read a government publication for what you're required to do, but how do you translate that into an SOP that's going to withstand an audit? And similar to Jeremy, Dwayne shared some of the templates they had. I had to, review those and adapt them to what's appropriate for a one-person business and match my infrastructure. And then when a SOP said I was doing something, I had to see if I was actually doing it. So it took a while to get through some of that, but then we, uploaded the policies, and I didn't try to do everything on that. It was kind of the first run through, but we got to a pretty decent score by uploading the policies. And you can kind of see the evolution there of getting to a decent number. And then, as an anecdote, so I had already, subscribed to the technology pieces, had CrowdStrike running on my machine, and I was doing some, web research to figure out what kind of firewall to get and what the capabilities were. And sure enough, Google offered me a site. I clicked on it and, didn't really think much of it. I just did, the site started offering me all kinds of things to download and whatnot. I said, well, we're not going to do that. And I, didn't think much of it, and contacted me and said, hey, we got all these alerts on your system. And when we did the time correlation, it was, right after I'd run that search on my browser. And it was, a malicious website that was documented on a suspicious DNS search. And it was continuing to try and hit another site that, wasn't something that I wanted to connect to. And so not only did I get alert, but we ran a scan, and, I didn't click on anything, but didn't have any malicious activity. So, that's the part that I didn't have and I couldn't have without having, somebody else do this continuous monitoring. And then the last piece I'll get at is just the time savings. The first time that I did this compliance, it took me a good 2 weeks full time. So 80 hours that I'm not, generating business. The next time I did it, it was a little less than a week, but, it was to update for a new prime contractor, so there's another 30 or so hours that I'm not generating business. And I think this next phase with Dwayne, it's taking significantly less time, probably a little over a day of total work time. And most of that was me kind of reviewing and understanding the SOPs so that I could make sure I could implement them, and understanding, where in Dwayne's services they were providing that for me. And I suspect as we go forward, each of these reviews will get shorter and shorter on my time, and I'll be able to use that time to generate business. And I also, like Jeremy, I can talk to my primes and say, yeah, I've got some pros looking at my cybersecurity, and they're looking at it all the time, and you don't have to worry about me. We're good to go.
Excellent. Rob, I appreciate that, sir. And so I just want to touch, because we talked about both Rob and also Jeremy uploading policies that we had given them, but there's many cases where organizations have their own policies. And so what we've done is built out this model so that when organizations have their own policies and they upload their policies, you can see all these scores from one of our counties. So these are all their policies against the gold standard that's in our backend piece. But the really cool thing about this is we'll map whatever policies you have. So whatever documents you have, we're going to map them to whatever policy it has the highest score on, or it best matches to. So you can just dump all these documents into this engine, and it will basically give you coverage in any of the policies that are required, and also tell you when there's not a policy or that you have no coverage. And so that coverage story, again, can be viewed very easily without having to read much anything right here. And so this whole logic, this whole way of viewing things, the ability to say, okay, technology wise, this county has us monitoring all their stuff. They're a big, decent sized county, so they have the right firewalls, they have all the right stuff. But their policies, are still in a little bit, in a need of help. And so they know now that these are the things they need to work on. But because they're being monitored 24/7, because they have the right mindset, and because we have a proven track record that they block things when we send it to them, their vulnerabilities get fixed fairly quickly, all those things that aren't part of any assessment, but it's a continuation of us monitoring all their data. And so this whole view and the way that we're doing this, that's the CISO logic, and that was all derived from Peter Liebert, who was the ex-CISO of California. So Peter, maybe now that people have seen some of the implementation of that initial spreadsheet that you had, maybe just talk through whatever you think might be important for the group to hear.